How's it going, everybody? Keisha the Baker is back in the kitchen here at Kitchen Bravo, and I've got a super amazing, easy bread recipe for you to keep in your arsenal. This is a Japanese milk bread, and it's going to give you the softest, most supple bread that you've had. We have potato bread, we have your basic sandwich bread, we've got all kinds of different recipes, and I'm always looking for different techniques and different things to use in order to make the bread to always have something on hand. This recipe is so easy and so wonderful, so tasty, that you're never going to want to buy bread ever again once you see how this comes out. I'm telling you, you're going to hold on to this recipe just like the other ones because these are keepers, all right? It starts with a 1/4 cup of water, which is right here in my saucepan. I'm going to turn the heat on to medium-low heat. And to my water, I'm going to grab my whisk first, right back here. To my water, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour right here into the water. And I want to mix it together until it comes like a paste-like form. And all I'm doing is basically making like a roux, but instead of using butter or oil, it's just flour and water. And this is going to give us a really nice base for our bread. Okay, our flour base is done, and you can see it's very paste-like here. It's kind of drying out, which is exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and tap the whisk into a large bowl, and I'm going to use a silicone spatula to scrape out all of this mixture, but turn the heat off first. Okay. So we're going to scrape all of this out into a large bowl, and this is going to have a moment to cool before we add the rest of our ingredients. We've got butter, we've got milk, we've got heavy cream, we have an egg, so it's best to have something cool that all of these things are going to go into, so that way you don't end up with scrambled eggs in your bread. All right. So my pot is pretty clean. I mean, everything's pretty scraped out. What I want to do is let the residual heat from the burner and the pot warm up 1/2 cup of milk. So I'm just going to put in 1/2 cup of milk right into the pot. There we go. And I don't need it scalding hot, I just need the chill taken off of it. So we're gonna let this come to temperature for a second, tap off the whisk and just kind of whisk it. Okay, the milk is somewhat warm now. I wanna add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar into my milk, and you can use granulated sugar if you want. I just like the flavor and texture that the brown sugar adds. Makes the bread just a tiny bit more chewy. And I also have 1 tablespoon of yeast. I want to sprinkle that on as well. Okay. So we're going to let this sit for just a moment until the yeast mixture is really nice and foamy. That way I know it's activated. It's been 5 minutes-ish, and our milk and yeast has foamed up really nicely, really well. So I'm going to add this into our water and bread base, just like this. All right, I'm going to whisk it all together. And this is not only going to make that paste really super smooth and uniform, it's also going to kind of cool down a little bit the milk and the yeast and just bring everything to one homogeneous temperature. Looks like all of the lumps are gone, which is fantastic. So I'm going to crack 1 egg into our bowl. Okay, we'll put that in there. And whip it together. I also want to add 1/3 cup of heavy cream. So, God, I love the smell of cream. Oof. It just kind of smells so thick, so rich and buttery. So add 1/3 cup of cream. Perfect. All right, I want to mix all of this together. And this mixture is getting really, really thick, but there's a lot of fat in it, which is one of the things that makes the bread texture so amazing. So don't be afraid of the fat. Fat is flavor, and it makes everything so much better. Okay, it is time now for our bread flour. So what's going to happen is I like to get my hands dirty. I've got 3 cups of bread flour right here, and that's going right into our wet works, along with a healthy 1.5 teaspoons of salt. There. And I just start working it with my hands. All right, right, so the dough's come together, but it's really very, very dry. You can see here it looks kind of like a pie crust that's not quite all together yet. But it'll come together whenever we add 3 tablespoons of softened butter. So I've got my butter dish right here. I'm gonna cut off a tablespoon and incorporate it in 1 tablespoon at a time. Okay, right there. All right, time to clear off some space so we can really work. We go there, there. There we go. So you really want to work the butter into the flour, into the bread dough. If the dough still feels a little bit dry to you, you can add another teaspoon of butter, not a whole tablespoon, but just add little bits at a time until it's to the consistency that is nice and smooth and elastic. Here is a beautiful ball of dough, and you can see it's really, really lovely, beautiful, elastic, kind of soft and supple. Okay, I want to get just a little smear of butter, softened butter, and spread it all over the bowl and make sure that it's really well coated. Maybe a little bit more. There we are. Okay. We're going to set this into the bowl and cover it with plastic wrap and let it rise for about an hour until it's doubled in size. 1 hour and 1 doubled loaf later, here we are. That gorgeous bread just smells like sweet butter. It's absolutely incredible. Okay, I have my loaf pan right here, and this is kind of one of those extra long loaf pans that I got on the internet. And all I'm gonna do is put a little bit of olive oil inside the loaf pan. And you can use butter, that's fine too. But I wanna use olive oil. And I wanna smear it around and make sure that it gets up on the sides and in the nooks and crannies and especially in the corners too. So that way the beautiful loaf of bread doesn't stick and rip whenever we go to tear it out. Because we're gonna tear it up. All right. So since my hands are oiled, this is gonna help very, very much in handling the dough. All right, so my pan is good. There we are. I'm gonna turn my dough out onto my workstation here. Notice I didn't put any flour on it. That's okay because there's so much fat and butter inside this bread that you don't need really to flour your work surface. But I am gonna smash it out just a little bit like this, and I'm gonna fold it over in thirds and make it a laminated dough. So I'm gonna roll it out again, just like this in the opposite direction, and fold it one more time. Okay. Now I'm gonna roll it out, and we're gonna do this 2 more times, and then we're gonna roll it lengthwise, like actually roll it up to make it fit into the pan. Okay. There we go. Over and over. Awesome. One more. You can really go ahead and put some pressure onto it. It's fine. It's a great hearty dough. Okay. And last one. Awesome. All right. So this is going to give us a bunch of like really awesome layers. And now I just want to roll it. Just like this. Roll and stretch. Kind of like you're a kid playing with Play-Doh. You want to make that long Play-Doh snake. Here we go. Okay. And just kind of rock it back and forth. And the ends are going to kind of seem like they want to come open. So you can just tuck them in. No problem. Just tuck them. No big deal. And just squeeze and roll. You just want to make a nice big log. And tap it a little bit. Okay. And there are lots of ways that you can shape this bread. You can usually, I know one of the more popular ways is to put it in quarters and like roll up different segments and have it fitted in the pan. And that's fine. I've done that before. But this is just so much easier. It's just a lot easier to do it this way. All right. So it's about the same size as my pan. It's a little bit smaller. But that's all right because as it expands again for the second proofing, it's going to rise and it's going to fit the size of the pan. There we go. All right, take the same plastic wrap. We're going to cover it up and let this sit for another hour until doubled in size. Meanwhile, we're going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees and then we're going to get ready to bake it up. Okay? Proofing an hour later, we have a nice little puff of bread, and it's going into the oven at 350 for 30 minutes. I swear the time it takes for bread to bake feels like the longest time ever in the world. But as you can see, it is done. Beautiful golden brown all around. I brushed the top with butter, and it's ready for slicing. Look at this. It just cuts so easily and so softly. Oh my God. This is like some of the most tender bread ever. The texture is just amazing. It's almost like a marshmallow. It's so supple. Check it out. Look at this. Isn't that something? Oh. All this needs is to get in my face. So I really like the heel part. I love a little extra bit of crust. I'm just gonna brush a little bit of butter on here, or a lot of butter, as the case may be. Break it in half. It just melts in your mouth. It's so tender. It's very buttery. It's kind of like a brioche. I mean, it's just so soft and so smooth. This bread is amazing. A little butter, a little cream, an egg, you put a little fat in there, you make that little slurry at the beginning. You've got magic like less than 3 hours later. But try this out. Milk bread, it's amazing. Add it to your arsenal of baked goods. You are absolutely going to love it. Okay guys, I'm out. I'm gonna take the rest of this bread, get a little bit of spread and put it on here, and I'm gonna call it a night. Okay, see ya.